Dominic, welcome to the Live the Width of Your Life podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. It's great to be here.
It's so exciting to meet you. And I want to congratulate you, first of all, on your business, on Thought Leaders America. So, congratulations. How long have you been the CEO?
So we're coming up to almost 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're joking about having a second birthday party on May 1st.
Well, May's my favorite month. It is my birthday month. So, there you go.
Yeah, so we'll get extra cake.
And so, for those that aren't as familiar with your business, tell me a little bit more about the business and who you serve and how you do so.
Yeah, so there's a huge opportunity at the moment where we take people who have remarkable stories and maybe stories that they aren't sharing publicly or professionally and really provide a platform to help them share those stories. Now, that could be on top rated podcasts, it could be on major TV news channels, it could be on stages, even, it could be on traditional PR and like print publications as well. But we've built this network of really remarkable media relationships like journalists, producers, writers. And through that, we're able to connect. Really, we're master connectors, these remarkable stories to the platforms and ultimately the audiences that need to hear them.
That's so interesting because so many people are really struggling with this. If you're an entrepreneur or a coach or somebody who's trying to launch a business or even just build an online brand, there's so many people who have their own methods or who want to talk about how they were able to do it for themselves. So, what made you interested in the area of PR and helping people to tell their stories?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of Liverpool, and I feel like the northwest of England is just filled with storytellers. I think back to the days of the ships coming in and people in the local pubs swapping stories with big mugs of beer and stuff like that. So I would say it's in my roots a little bit from that, but I always was intrigued and curious. And I went into journalism. I knew that's what I wanted to go to college for, and I knew that's what I wanted to study. And the big reason why was because of stories. And I think the big transition for me was that I lost my mother at a I'd say about 23 years old I was.
Yeah.
I realized there was so much history and family sentiment. And then I lost my brother 3 years later. And then my father, he fell down the same stairs that my mother fell down. He survived, but he's unable to speak now. And so I've
Yeah.
lost all this family history and knowledge, especially from my father, because he was very gregarious. And so that really struck a chord on top of the fact I already had a passion for storytelling and curiosity. But then it made me realize we don't have forever to tell these stories.
Mm.
And so many people have stories that unfortunately they do go to the grave with them. The old saying how the graveyards are the most valuable pieces of real estate in the world because that's where all the unfinished books are. That's where all those great business ideas that never got launched are. And so that is what really led me on this quest, in addition to almost losing my own life a few years later.
Tell us a little bit about that because I read that you were in Africa, I think, right? Is that correct? Is that where you were when you had a near death experience?
Yeah, we're on a honeymoon. So we went to South Africa on safari, and then we extended the trip to Zimbabwe and Zambia. And there's a river that runs through called the Zambezi River. We're sort of young thrill seekers. There's class 5 rapids, and you just don't think like what could go wrong. And as soon as we got on the raft, we knew something was wrong. Though, we could hear hissing coming out of the raft, and we're trying to get the guide's attention, like, hey, hey. We kind of just brushed aside. He doesn't speak English. We obviously don't speak the local language. And so we get going into this really down the river. And it's very quickly into the first rapids. And we bumped through that one. And now it was really obvious. We're trying to get his attention. And before we knew it, boom, we smash into this rapid. The whole side of the raft that I'm on collapses. And most people get thrown overboard, but I get dragged under.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was competing at that time in triathlons, and back in San Francisco, I'd actually swam the Alcatraz race. So in the back of my mind, I felt like, oh, I've got this, I'm fine. And I went to resurface, and as I resurfaced, I realized I'm under the raft here, and we're barreling down. And all the water is so loud. That's the thing. It's like roaring water, and it's like all this sort of chaos around me. I was just thinking, I was very calm. And then I went to resurface the second time and bump, it's the raft. And this is a big raft. And I'm like, I remember my brain just suddenly just clicked and I was so clear with what I had to do. It was this incredible wave of clarity. And I was like, right, I've got to fight the complete opposite way of what I'm doing and just really swim as hard as I can. And as I swam and was basically fighting against the current, I eventually managed to break free and then resurface. And it suddenly, it was like someone flipped a switch from being all this roaring noise to then suddenly resurfacing. And it was almost like silence.
Mhm.
And I couldn't believe it. And it literally in the space of 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, I was just like, something as fragile and simple as water almost completely took me out. And that was when I realized that I'm not done yet. But if I had have gone that day, all my legacy would be gone. And so that's what ultimately set me on this path, because there's so many other great stories that people have that need to be shared and are so precious that they could be gone.
Wow. It's so interesting when we have these episodes in our life that at the time are terrifying or really difficult to go through, and you experienced a lot of loss. And then your own near death experience, how that clarity comes in. Where do you think that came from? Do you have strong faith? Was it an inner knowing? How do you describe where that came from?
I studied this for a number of years after because I was trying to understand, and I spoke to a number of people about it because the number three kept coming up as well. You know, the number three, that's a very symbolic number. It took you
Mm.
3 times to resurface. And I realized that it was a physiological reaction in a way. And it set me on this course for studying, well, how can I replicate that sequence of becoming calm, having clarity, and then having the courage to take action on the clarity? And so for me, I feel like being prepared really helped because I'd swam Alcatraz before. But for clarity, it was literally a life or death switch where I had to be clear. But what if you could recreate that? What if you could recreate that in the boardroom? What if you could recreate that in your marriage or with your kids or even in sports? And so what I found was that breathing techniques are really crucial to this, because if you have a fully oxygenated brain, then you become really clear. And so I started studying breathing techniques, ancient breathing techniques. And there was a really fascinating CEO I spoke to from India, and he taught me how that he holds one nostril, breathes in for 6 to 8 seconds, holds it for about 8 seconds, and then breathes out. And the numbers change depending on different people do different lengths. But the key is you breathe in for 6 seconds, hold it, then breathe out, and it just resets your whole physiology. So I've used that for years now, where a simple example, when my daughter was a toddler in the car seat, she just would not get in the car seat. And my
Mhm.
9 a.m. meeting, I've got to drop her off. And so I would just take a breath. It's just a car seat. It's just a 9 a.m. meeting. Breathe, oxygen, then the hairs on the back of your neck just slowly drop.
Yeah.
Heart rate slows down, and then you can make a good decision.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I think the breathing technique you're talking about is Anuloma Viloma. And I studied that during yoga teacher training because I also facilitate breath work. And breath work is just it's so amazing. It's so practical because we all have it. It's the respiratory system is the only automatic as well as controlled system in our body. So we breathe and without thinking about it most of the time if we're healthy, but we can control it and we can regulate our nervous system with breath, which is so amazing. It's free, it's available, and it's such a gift. And yet, so many people, when they hear you talk about breath work, they think it sounds crazy. Like, how could possibly breath work help me in a given situation? So, do you teach your clients breath work or do you encourage them to breathe as part of what you offer for them?
Yes, because many of them get nervous backstage,
Hmm.
and myself included. And what helped me backstage, and I've shared this with a number of clients, is I'll take a Vicks menthol mint. So if I'm on set and like the segment, I know it's ending in 3 minutes right before me, put a menthol in. It just helps clear all the sinuses, get more oxygen in.
Yeah.
And yes, it's just, well, we're human. We're just humans and we have natural physiological triggers. Breathing is the number one thing that can really help, like you say, calm the nervous system down.
Yeah. And it's so quick. You can do 3 deep breaths. It doesn't really require a lot of time, which is amazing. So, going back to the work that you do, tell me who your ideal clients are. Who do you typically work with? Who's looking for more help with getting their story out?
So, one of my favorite aspects of the job is working with startup founders, just because it's so cool to hear all this innovation and just the latest things that are being developed. So, we work a lot with startup founders who are trying to get some early media wins. So, they're looking for investments. They might have completed Series A, they're looking for Series B, and getting on TV, especially, really helps prove, hey, we're credible, and then an investor has confidence. So we work a lot in that space with not only startup founders, but investment firms, because you've got the startups are creating the next big thing. The investors are looking to fuel it with capital. And then we have the media relationships that can then amplify it. So yeah, that's one section. And then we work a lot with established CEOs as well, a lot of PR marketing departments, because they look at us and say, well, wait a second, you're going to put our CEO on TV and you're going to do all the logistics, all the planning, all the coaching,
Yeah.
but we get the credit for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one trend that I've seen, which is fascinating, is female founders and CEOs are really underrepresented. And I'm working with my colleague, Chrissy Colton, on this, because what we're finding is there's often a temptation for many, both male and female, to wait for the invitation. And very often when we start working with CEOs or entrepreneurs, they always think, well, the media is going to find me, or I'm not ready yet. I'm working on this, but it's not ready yet. And so a lot of what we workshop with clients is not just how to get started, but what to talk about as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I would imagine, I think going back to the idea of fear, people are scared to talk, especially if they've not received media training or if they feel like their story is not special. So often, especially as entrepreneurs, but as women as well, people will hold off. They'll wait for the permissioning or wait to feel ready. And I always tell my clients, if you're waiting for that, nobody's going to give you permission. You have to feel like you can take action today, even before you feel ready. So, what are some of the things that you do to help people get ready? And then, how do you find the best opportunities for them?
Yeah, so starting is so important because the feedback loop, getting that initial feedback. So the first question I always like to ask is, what do you want the audience to feel?
Hmm.
Because quite often people say, well, I could talk about this, I could talk about that. It's like, okay, that's great. That's great information. But what do you want the audience to actually feel?
Hmm.
Because that's the barometer of whether you get invited back or not. And so we start there with the end result. And sometimes it's the product or service. I want people to feel a better version of themselves. We work with a health tech company, for example. They help with healing. They have a device that has pulse electromagnetic frequency. So the founder of that company, he wants people to have lower anxiety, less stress. And this device also helps like PTSD, things like that. That's a simplistic example where you have a product or service that's going to help people. And once we know how we want people to feel, then we can bring in the storytelling. And people are sitting on golden nuggets. You'd be amazed at stories that people conceal because they just don't know. They don't think it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's the case so often. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a brand strategist. And when she asked people ideas about their brand and who they are and what makes them special or what they bring, typically what we state is not necessarily the golden nuggets, like you said. It's usually when you ask the better questions, when you get deeper into their story, that as the other person, you can say, no, that's actually the story. That's the thing that's super interesting and unique about you. So, what are some of those examples, maybe, that we wouldn't necessarily see about ourselves, but you are able to pull out of people?
Yeah. And a great example of this is alcohol sales have been dropping, especially with males. And I was looking at research this week where if you follow the research, the reason why men are spending less on alcohol is to save money. That's what the research shows.
Really?
But wait till you hear this. So it's the way the question's asked.
Huh?
And this is why it's so good to have a coach, because if you take that at face value, people are saving money and you're like, okay, yep. But when you ask the question, if I gave you $10,000 today, no strings attached, what would you do with the money? Not a single male said put it into savings.
Interesting. What did they
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. It was all over. It was go on a cruise. It
Yeah.
was like,
Have fun, spend it, invest
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And that's what we do is we dig deeper. It's asking the follow-up questions or rephrasing the question,
Mm.
because the election's a great example. We don't ask people who you're going to vote for. We say, who is your neighbor going to vote for?
Mm.
You know how people used to say, oh, asking for a friend,
Yeah.
because people won't admit they're asking for themselves because they want to conceal that as the perfect exterior. And so it's peeling back the layers with really curious questioning is how we then find out what is the real source. And that third layer of questioning usually reveals something where we're like, wow, this is golden. We need to bring this story forward.
Based on the client, how do you determine whether you put them on a podcast or you put them in front of the media on television, or if it's print? Is it based on them or is it based on their story? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so they're a really powerful combination, TV and podcasting. Ideally, we would do both together. The challenge with TV at the moment, well, the data is TV viewership's declining. That's one of the biggest challenges. But also, I think it's starting to lose. Like it used to have, there was no doubt about the influence that it had. Every research study, it was TV is the most persuasive and most credible medium. But what we like to do is a two-pronged approach ultimately. So TV is great for a large audience and the headline, a 3 to 5 minute interview. You really touch on kind of like the movie trailer almost. But when you back that up with a series of podcast interviews, that's where businesses can really move the needle. And the reason why is because consumers now are spending well over 8 to 10 hours, so in some cases 20 hours researching an individual or a brand before making a purchasing decision. And so if someone can find you on a podcast and let's say they already listen to the host, they have a relationship with the host now bringing you on, now it's like they're inviting a friend over.
Right.
And they're very intimate podcasts because you're listening in the car, at the gym, cooking dinner.
On a walk. Yeah.
Yeah. On a walk. Yeah. And we saw it with the last election as well. I mean, it just had a huge shift
Oh my
where,
gosh.
yeah. And so I like to recommend both a TV and podcasts. And the other approach with traditional PR is finding the right sort of coverage. So we have some clients, they love just to respond to journalist requests. Journalist has an article, it's like, hey, I need 3 sources about
Mhm.
leadership. And typically the publish rate's about, I would say anywhere from 5 to 15% effectiveness.
Okay.
Some clients are at about 40%
Mhm.
success rate because of relationships. So that's one way. But some clients hate it. Like, I don't want to respond unless it's guaranteed, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a long answer. It's a multi pros and cons to everything. That's what we do. We try and find the best strategy really for the client's needs.
Sure. How do you track whether the PR is successful or not? Like, if somebody works with you and maybe they're on a podcast or maybe they do get their name in an article, like, how do they track back? Do they track whether it came from that particular source, or do you help them identify there's a good return on the investment?
Yeah, so I'm breaking my own rule today because I don't have like a resource to offer at the end of the
Yeah.
but we do recommend having something customized for the audience, and a free resource especially works really well.
Hmm.
And in that then you have a tracking link that can then go back and you can actually track the metrics.
Yeah. From that, like a lead magnet.
Exactly, a lead magnet, yeah. Now, we do have an AI platform on the back end. And so, without getting too technical, what we've been doing over the last 6 months is feeding in thousands and thousands of podcast episodes, scanning all the signals. So, the host, the guests, the audience, key metrics, the transcripts, and we have an ability now to even upload the voice tracks for coaching, so we can have a client where we're on the tonality,
Hmm.
pacing. And again, I'm breaking all my own rules, but that's all the data indicators that we bring forward.
Hmm.
And so you get a whole snapshot of hey, you've been on these podcasts so far. These are the ones that have said yes. This is matching really well. The data's showing that you're going to have a high acceptance rate if we keep trying those. Or if you want to be on more, let's just say, if you want to be on more leadership podcasts, we should change your narrative this way. So there's a lot of data behind the scenes that, in addition to tracking the lead magnet downloads as well.
Sure, that makes sense. How do you feel about AI in terms of what it's done to people, to storytelling in general, to content creation? Everyone's using AI. And I think that if some people are doing it well, some people are using it 100% and just slapping it up. I think people can tell that it's not necessarily heart driven or something that really represents the person. So, what have you noticed in terms of how people are using AI, and how do you feel about it in terms of helping one tell their story?
Yeah, I remember the M dashes when everybody suddenly just from nowhere was using M dashes all
And now
across
you
the
can't
board.
use them legitimately. And I'm like, they're everywhere. I mean, honestly, there are rightful sources and when to use them, Dash.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. Like, but that was me. I actually wanted to use it there. It wasn't AI. Yeah, I think AI is brilliant. I think it's a great accelerator used by the right people. It's very obvious now, I feel like, where people are over dependent on it because all AI at the moment is really an aggregator of information.
Hmm.
And what's happening is you can just see where people are they're getting all their information, but they're not spending time with the information. And so it's a huge opportunity for people like me and you, I feel like, who can take information. We have access to more information than before. Use time to really reflect, create our own new individual personal thoughts on it, and then take it to another level that nobody else is able to. So for that intention, I think it's a huge amplifier. Now, as you say, for mainstream, unfortunately, we do see people, like ads that are created that are clearly, and YouTube is now downgrading AI content in terms of the algorithm and stuff like that. But used in the right way, it's going to be phenomenal. OpenClaw, for example, I'm really excited about how that's developing, where you can have your own AI assistant 24/7 running on a separate server
Hmm.
that you just communicate through text or through WhatsApp. And if people aren't familiar with OpenClaw, it's an AI that you set up on a separate computer and you can use it as a second brain and you text to it as if it's a human and it just organizes stuff. And when you go to bed at night, you can say, hey, please complete these 5 tasks and please research this topic for me. And then when you wake up, you have all the reporting and everything done.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of using it as an assistant, I think, has been fantastic. I've found so many great use cases that allows me then to spend time on the things that I want to think about. I also see people overusing it when I work with coaching clients, for example, and especially if they're trying to start a business and they're struggling to articulate actually who they're serving. They want to go back to like what chat came up with them. And I'm like, if you cannot tell me who you work with and what problem you're solving yourself, we've got a problem. And I think sometimes we overuse it where it's thinking for us and then we can't think on our own. So I do think that there's a little bit of overuse with some of the use cases, but I do think that it's definitely a way to optimize and to be efficient as well.
Yeah, well, and I've seen that with email. People have lost the art of emailing because they have to keep running everything through AI.
Right. Yeah. Even responses. It's so crazy. Like on LinkedIn, it's a weird thing that I'm observing. It's like people are using AI, of course, to help create content or maybe to refine it. That's fine. But then they're using it to do the responses on people's posts as well. And so when you get these things and you can read it, and it's like, I know you didn't write this. And so I'm like, why do the activity in the first place? And so sometimes I just pause. It's almost been such a turnoff for me. Sometimes I just need to take a break just because I feel like there's no energy to what I'm reading. You can tell that it's not written by a human. And so it'll be interesting to see what this does to your business, where people actually have to be more human and they have to be able to speak and to show up and to be articulate and to tell their story in a way that really connects with another human. And that's why I think podcasts actually have taken off the way it has. And maybe TV will come back a little bit, or YouTube, maybe more in the visual sense as well, because people can see whether this is another human being having a conversation or if it's a machine that's actually doing it for them.
Yeah, and there's going to become a point where, for many people, the basic needs are going to be met. AI is replacing so many tasks. And so I was having a philosophical conversation where it's like, well, if all of our basic needs are met, we have enough money, what do we then do? And so what my hope is that people then say, well, I want to pursue my true purpose
Mm-hmm.
because now all this work is basically handled for me. So now I can really share that story that's inside of me. And really, if I become a thought leader in the space or pursue a passion that maybe wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago because someone was stuck doing the work. So I'm hoping it could open up those sorts of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm really curious too if you can share what are some of the fears that people have about being seen or heard? Because this is something that I see with my clients, and especially if they're scared of public speaking, or maybe they're scared to even post and share their story to demonstrate a little bit of vulnerability. What are some of the things that you're seeing, and how are you able to really help these clients so that they can get their story out there?
Yeah, I think this will really resonate with the work that you do as well, because there has to be an alignment.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest challenge people have is that they think they have to put on this exterior performance. And the people that I see struggle are ones that the exterior version of themselves is different from their internal version. And
Mm-hmm.
so when they're not aligned, it becomes performing and it becomes energy draining to be on set, trying to say the perfect thing and so forth. And so we do work with clients where we try and bring them, you don't have to be telling people your deepest, darkest secret and things like that, but to have that internal alignment where you are aligned how you communicate. You don't have to think about how you're going to give the best answer. You can just answer authentically. Authenticity is so important. It's overlooked so many times, and I see it all the time where something will be audience centric, it'll be emotionally engaging, but it's not authentic
Hmm.
and people can tell. And so I think we work on terms of mindset with that authenticity piece first. And then for fear, I always say is you have to get your at bats in. It's that simple, and that's easier said than done. I've had TV interviews where I've come off mortified. I had 5 big points I wanted to make, and I only made two. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't say these three things. I'm cringing when it's going to get broadcast. And then it comes out, and I'm like, well, the 2 points I did make came across articulately, at least half articulately. The audience had no idea I was going to say three more things. It was only in my
Right.
head.
Yeah. It's so interesting when we're in our head and instead of just being so fully present. I think when we're present, we could be authentic. We're not necessarily thinking about, am I performative? What do I need to say? What do people think as they're listening or they're viewing me? I had my first lesson in this when we had some media training when I was back in corporate. And the woman who was facilitating the training for us, public speaking, she was recording us. We had to prepare something to talk about. We all had to get on stage in front of our peers and we had to give the talk. And she was recording us. And then when I finished with my talk, she said, oh, hey, before you get off, and she asked a personal question like, how's it going with your sister's engagement party? Because I was talking about stuff in between. What she didn't tell me is that she was still recording me. And so when we went back to review the recording, she saw me and we kind of went through the presentation or the performance that I gave. And then the camera kept rolling. And then suddenly I was me and I was myself and I was talking and I was animated using my hands and all these things. She said, what'd you notice? And I was like, I am two different people. It was so different. And the things that when I was myself, I actually preferred that version. It was much more relaxed. It was much more natural. It looked like somebody who was having fun talking. And the other one was a version of myself that I was trying to portray, someone who was credible, who knew what she was talking about, more formal. And it was actually in seeing it, because we don't necessarily see ourselves, we're in our head so much, and then saying, how do we take some of the natural and incorporate that into when you are sharing, because it is a little bit more formal. That was the biggest wake up call for me. And that gave me the permission to actually say, just be yourself when you're much more natural and comfortable. Everyone else is going to want to listen to that. Nobody wants to listen to that version of me that was like so stiff. It was horrible. I wasn't even using my hands. They were so like, it just seemed so unnatural. So, do you notice that? Do you ever record folks? Like, do you actually also do recordings, either of them, of the audio or of the visual, before they go and they are sharing their story publicly?
Yeah, we'll do like sessions like this over Zoom, for
Okay.
example, and play the tape back. And then after a TV interview, we'll then go back and show just body language. Um, a big one is mirroring as well. I always say it's as if you're going into somebody's house or we're going on set. And I always joke that you always want to be like on the edge of the couch, like
Yeah. You don't want
uncomfortably
people
on the
out in
edge.
the back. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you go into a friend's house, if they lean in, you would lean in.
Right.
They asked you a question about like, well, how's this? You wouldn't answer a different question. You would answer the question as well.
Right. So basic things that we forget when we're stressed or fearful or worried about the way we're going to come across.
Exactly. You treat the conversation like you're chatting to an old friend. Exactly what the coach told you.
Yeah. It was so
Yeah,
interesting. It was actually incredible just to see, because after that, the feedback wasn't personal. I didn't feel like it was emotionally charged at all. I just thought, oh, wow, I have some information here, some data. So I can do something with this. I can change it and make it better. So I'm grateful that I had that experience early on in my career.
yeah. And do you find as well that, especially with like leaders, where people don't want to tell them like constructive criticism?
Sure, of course. We're also sensitive. And I think people don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And that's why I think having a professional to work with, you've done this with so many clients. And so you have the experience, you know what works, you know the best practices.
Yeah, and they tell us that they really like the feedback. Is like people say yes to me all day, and it's like, no, you're hunched over, you stand up straight, make eye contact, because that's the only way we get better.
Hmm.
Someone said to us a while back, "You guys are like professional nitpickers," but I really like it.
Yeah. Well, you have to be. They're paying you for it, right? They want to get better.
Yeah, and what sometimes drives me mad about being on the TV sets is the producers are so focused on the host and how the host looks and everything that we have to advocate for our clients where you might be talking that way, but if your hair's down, it could block your face, or if there's a stray hair, or my biggest pet peeve is the microphone wires. Like, come on, guys, help the client out. They don't put microphones on every day. Just make sure those wires are out of sight, tight, and everything else. So, where we can, we'll go on set just to make sure that there's no like collar sticking out or something like that at the last minute.
Absolutely. So if folks want to work with you, Dominic, how can they find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, Dominic Forth, or connect, I've got a new project that I'm working on. I'm going to be sharing a lot of free resources very soon. So connect with me on LinkedIn at Dominic Forth. The other place to connect with our team and learn more about what we do is thoughtleadersamerica.com.
Wonderful. We will include all of those in the show notes. And the final question I ask everyone is, what does it mean to you to live the width of your life?
I think today, off our topic, it's really paying tribute to our inner voice, where our inner voice can overcome who we are externally. And so trusting our instincts of who we are and all the value we bring and not shielding it or guarding it or waiting for the invitation, but saying, I am me, I am human, here's who I am, and here's how I can help, and here's how I can serve.
I love that. It's such a great reminder to always look externally, to focus on service. And when we do, we just tend to get it right. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. I wish you continued success in your business. And hopefully, everyone that's listening looks you up and has an opportunity to connect, especially if they're looking to get their story out. You don't have to figure out how to do it yourself.
Yeah, if you want to share your story, but you don't know where to start, we can help you decide what it is that you want, that story that you want to share.
Wonderful. Have an amazing day.
Thank you. You too.